What is something embarrassing from your past that keeps you up at night? When I first installed Facebook application on my phone, I was looking up a classmate of mine. Instead of typing it into search bar, I posted her name as a public status on my wall. I realized about 5 minutes later, just as I was about to log off. My chest still hurts thinking about that. When I was about 24, I had a childhood friend die. He'd always been sick. It wasn't totally unexpected, but it did hit the family hard, as you'd imagine. At the wake I was very emotional, and when I spoke to his mother, she reached out for a handshake. Something deep in my stupid, idiotic brain made me do this handshake at that moment. There are times when I'm driving alone on the highway, or lying awake in bed, when this horrifically awkward moment just plays over and over again in my mind. First time I asked out a girl. She said yes. We were in the halls of the school at the time, surrounded by people. I turned and gave my friend a high five and said something stupid as hell like "on a yeah." She took back the yes and changed her mind. So many people witnessed it. When I was in high school, I had a crush on a girl at church, and I had every reason to believe she liked me too. One night after church, I grabbed her car keys and made a joke about not letting her go because I wanted to sit on my tailgate and chat. Everything actually went about as well as I could have hoped for. We sat and talked for a good hour or so. We were sitting pretty close, like side by side, and she put her hand on my lap, like palm up, for me to hold it. Not to jack me off or some shit. I smiled one of those huge goofy smiles and happily grabbed hold of her hand and made a joke something along the lines of, "I'm not one to move too fast, but I'll hold your hand." So like 10 seconds into holding hands, she finally cringe grimaced and said, "I actually just wanted my keys back, E1. Grabber to grabbed." The hottest girl in my class passed me a note, asking me if I wanted to hang out with her sometime. Me, being bullied all my life, told her to duck off, thinking it was some kind of prank joke. Turns out, she actually had a thing for me. Called a judge, your majesty. I pretended that I could play the guitar, and had to perform to the entire class. I didn't want to go to school the next day. When I was about 13, I would sometimes jerk off to YouTube videos. One night, I had just finished up with one of my YouTube jerk sessions, and my 24-year-old brother walks into the room. He walks up behind me and says, "I found your YouTube history the other day. If mom and dad see it, you'll be in a lot of trouble." He then proceeds to show me how to access my history. Sees that minutes earlier I had been watching a video of a large black woman getting her ass slapped, and just goes "alright," and leaves the room. I hope he forgot by now. It's been almost a decade. I had recently moved to a new neighborhood and wasn't too familiar with my neighbors. I ordered an Uber to get to soccer practice or something and accidentally got into my neighbor's car instead of the Uber and didn't realize it because they both arrived at the same time and were the same car. As if that wasn't bad enough, when I entered his car, he said, No, I'm your neighbor," and I thought, oh that's weird, my Uber driver is my neighbor. Took me a little while to realize what happened. Edit. Wow, this comment has blown up. I don't think I mentioned the most embarrassing detail of all. While I was in his car, he said, "I'm just returning home from work." My dumbass thought this man was just abandoning me, and after I got out I kept thinking, how the hell am I going to reach practice now? I was pretty pissed. A minute later my real Uber turns into my cul-de-sac and it hit me. This was about 6 months ago. I'm 17. Whenever I'm in bed I'm reminded of all the dumb embarrassing things I used to do. So let me begin. I broke my family's VHS copy of Titanic because I kept rewinding it so I could jerk it to Jack painting Rose like a French girl. Let's see. My mom found my box of condoms in my room while I was home for winter break. Brought it out into our living room where my girlfriend, brother and I were sitting and just started laughing. After she finished, She just casually said, "You two have sex quite often, don't you?" The box is almost empty. Another time, I was maybe like 13 or 14. And I was secretly using my dad's computer. I think I was grounded. I was home alone and decided to be extremely naughty, so I went onto Pornhub and watched porn. Well, I didn't clear history, or even close the tab, since my parents came home unexpectedly early and startled me. I just slammed the monitor power button, without muting as well, and went into my room. My parents both heard the film as it reached its climax. I screamed during a fire drill in first grade because a grasshopper landed on my arm. It was huge to me because I was so small. I thought it was a monster. I got sent to the principal's office. Sometimes I think about how I almost became the biggest asshole in middle school. There was this girl in my class who was a bit of a tattletale and teacher's pet. And one day I see her adjusting this thing on her hip with some numbers and an LCD screen. There is a little wire running up her shirt. My first thought was, oh shit. She's using a Walkman in class and here's my chance to call her out for goofing off. Then this little voice in my head said, whatever, it's not my business. Come to find out, I almost loudly called her out for adjusting her insulin pump, which she recently got. That was close. Sending a love confession on a USB filled with a girl's favorite TV show season that she hadn't yet watched. We are still just friends. But I still facepalm on how dorky that was. Thankfully she hasn't brought it up ever since turning me down. One time in high school I was on a Ferris wheel with an acquaintance. There was some problem with the ride. So they stopped it when we were right at the top. For a reason I will never know, he decided to use that moment to confess his love, which I didn't return unfortunately, and sing me Yellow by Coldplay. It was pretty awkward being stuck up there after that. So whenever you think back to your embarrassing moment, at least take solace in the fact that you never did what my high school acquaintance did. In college I was about to hook up with this girl but was too drunk to get it up. Then I got a nosebleed and didn't notice because the lights were off. Once I did notice, I turned the lights on and she was covered in my nose blood. Yeah, whoops. I shat myself while at school when I was 6. You would think after 34 years I would be over it. Nope. Like a Vietnam vet. I still have flashbacks of that day and want to dig a hole and just climb into it when I think about it. Oh my god, you've just brought back memories I'd almost managed to suppress. I did the same. I basically followed through after farting. Thought it felt weird, so asked to go to the toilet. Once in the toilet, realized my underwear was absolutely full of really squishy sheet. There was no way I could deal with it myself. I totally did not know what to do. So I just sat there. Until eventually the teacher sent another kid to see where I was. It was this really itchy girl who I hated and used to pick on me. But I was so desperate I didn't know what else to do, so I opened the cubicle door and showed her my knickers, and she just had this look of pure pity and said, okay, I'll go and get the teacher. I guess it must have happened a lot though, because the teaching assistant discreetly took me after a shower behind the principal's office. Washed me down and gave me a clean pair of knickers out of this chest of drawers full of spare underwear. In fairness to the girl, she never mentioned it again. Which I'm forever grateful for. That could have gone so badly. At a college function, my classmates kept shouting my name, asking me to sing on the stage. I was a decent singer at a friend's party. I had stage fear but thought I'd do okay with all this cheering going on. Wrong. I went from an invisible person to being someone most of the college knew as an overconfident girl with a terrible, cracked voice. I still think about it 15 years later. I had a long ugly period from ages 11-17, which was deepest and darkest in the middle. In my freshman year of high school I got a light crush on this extremely hot guy and told my friends I thought he was cute. Which led to them calling him J-chan, like the Japanese thing that weeaboos do. To make fun of me, I guess. It was totally nonsensical, and would squeal "OHHH it's Chan" whenever he was around. Keep in mind these weren't like weird weeby girls. They were good looking and generally popular. Which made it extra awful for some reason. It was super obvious that it was him they were talking about, to the point that he started avoiding me in public. It got so bad that eventually I came out as a lesbian protestant because I saw no other convincing way out. I then proceeded to spend the next 4 years of my life being a les. All because I was so mortified that this poor, attractive, nice dude felt like my ugly goblin self was creeping on him. Edit. He was Korean. It was awful, and I think the light racism was really what drove me over the edge. When I was a freshman in high school, I was sitting in the back of the class with my arm on the heater. An upperclassmen cheerleader put her arm on the heater with her hand on top of mine. She said something like, "You like the heater?" And I remember turning so red I could feel my face heating up, and I stuttered, "Why yeah. It's warm." I think she giggled and not another word was said until the teacher called on one of us and she took her hand off mine. I just came to a complete blank as soon as her hand touched mine, and I never talked to her again. It was one of the only times I completely lost my spaghetti in front of a girl. She caught me off guard, man. Another time when I lost my virginity, I was with a girl under the blankets and I didn't know WTF to do, so I just started thrusting. Couldn't feel anything because of the condom, and after about a minute of this she goes, "Up. Move up." I was basically thrusting my big dick between her legs. Then I believe the time after that I accidentally put it in the pooper. High school cafeteria. Had just gotten out of pay. I was sitting with a girl that I really liked and 2-3 of mutual friends, all of whom knew I liked the girl. I was snacking on some chips and one of my friends said something funny. I laughed, choked on the chips, and then spat them all over the table in front of this girl. I was absolutely horrified, and so was she. It was dead silent for the next few minutes as I sheepishly wiped it up with a paper towel. Then she moved to a different state like a week later. I was in kindergarten. It was pancake day. One of the cooks left a bowl of pancakes unsupervised on a stool, ready to be served for all the children once they sat down at the tables. All of the kids were sat in neat columns facing the tables, and I was in the front of the column closest to the pancake bowl. I loved pancakes. I went onto my knees and it's like time stopped. I was bending my head and sticking my tongue out to grab a bite of the pancake at the top. The cook saw me and grabbed me before I could do anything. She was so mad she said that I will be permanently moved to another class. I sat in that other class for half an hour, absolutely bawling my eyes out with snot running down my face. The doors of that class and my old class were open and they were on the opposite sides of the corridor to each other. I could see all my friends and they could see me absolutely losing it. I wasn't sad about the pancakes. I was sad because I got in trouble and my parents would be told. I was queuing in a really busy coffee shop, and after eventually getting to the counter and placing my order, the barista went to start making my drink. She shouted across the room, "What kind of milk do you want?" and my brain froze. Suddenly confused about what different types of milk exist, I blurted out, "White milk." Realizing my error immediately, I decided to write it out and act like that was a totally normal thing to say. Kills me inside when I remember it. During school assembly they were handing out awards and they said my first name, but it was a different guy in the grade older than me. We both stood up but I had to sit down. I had the entire assembly looking at me, which was about 400-500 kids. Got to hang out drinking with my fav band. I don't drink much, so was first time they'd seen me tipsy. A friend said maybe I should slow down, and instead of Jack Daniels I said, "But I've only had 5 Jack Russells." Saw the band 4 years later, and the singer handed me a drink and said, "I made you a Jack Russells." I used to donate plasma pretty regularly at the facility I went to. Before they poked your arm, they would rub iodine onto the spot where you were gonna get stuck. Before they would do this, they would ask, "Are you allergic to iodine?" Well, one day, the technician comes over to me and I'm more focused on something I was reading on my phone. "Thanks, Reddit." He asks me something and I reply no, thinking he had asked if I was allergic to iodine. The guy replies with something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," and has a worried expression on his face. I was pretty confused by this and asked what he meant. Turns out he had asked me if everything was going okay today and I had replied with no. I apologized and we laughed it off, but the whole exchange after that felt so awkward. Dude probably thought I was about to vent all my problems to him. Poor guy. I wanted to date my best friend's sister. This cringe comes in 2 flavors. Hurts, I sent a huge bouquet of flowers to her house. Keep in mind I was like 17. In my defense, she loved them until she found out they were from me. When I asked my best friend for his permission, I actually joked that if me and her ever got married, me and him would be brothers. God damn, I'm married for 5 years now to lovely lady and I still can't hold a normal conversation with the sister to this day. Recently I've been thinking about me singing feminine songs, as they are called by my friends, but I enjoy them, and I would record it and post it on Facebook. I was 8. My god. I hate myself. Edit. I made the mistake of sharing my Reddit. Today on the 18th of April my world has been taken over. All the times I made cute moments awkward ruined because I am not good with accepting someone likes me. Or me liking them. I'm sorry fellas. Wish I wasn't so awful either. You are not alone. End of a date. We go in for a goodnight kiss. I start doubting myself. End up kissing her cheek like a close friend. Then just in case that wasn't awkward enough, I become tongue-tied and start talking nonsense until I walk away to curl up and die in a corner. I was 9 and my class had a spelling bee. I won out of my 20-ish classmates and was sent to the school-wide spelling bee. In front of the whole school I was so nervous that I spelled janitor JRNTOR forgetting the I. Afterwards I saw a friend in the hall and he said janitor and I was so embarrassed. I purposefully lost the next year in class so I wouldn't go in front of the school. Weird how something so stupid stays in your memory. I always start thinking about cringy stuff I said and did on a Minecraft server when I was 9 or 10. At the time I thought that, just because I could spell better than most people, I was smarter than them and could say whatever I wanted to. I was very wrong. Back in the days of MSN, I sent a message to my friend about how long it had been since I'd had a crush on. Well, my crush got a reply that said, "I don't think you meant to send this to me." Started panicking because I'd actually sent the message to my mom and not my friend. Checked 2 or 10 times before sending a message to anyone after that. I used to have a crush on this guy when I was in 4th grade and my friends thought it was hilarious, so they started drawing dirty pictures of us like in bed or kissing, and the teach, I think she was a sub, saw us and took it from us and threw it away. I was so embarrassed, so my friend said she would go in during lunch to get the paper back so no one would see it. She ended up going back for it and switching the drawing in the trash with a blank crumpled paper instead. One night during my freshman year of college, I was taking care of some business on Pornhub. Upon completion, I closed my laptop and went to bed satisfied. The next morning I woke up a little late, which was very common. So I just grabbed my things and skated to class. Now this was not your typical classroom-sized class. This is an auditorium filled with students. I was sitting almost exactly in the middle when I opened my laptop and hit the power button. If you are reading this, you may have an idea of what happened next. You are right. A moan of intense climaxing echoed through a room specifically designed to carry sound. Kudos to the architect, because the acoustics were impeccable. I slammed my laptop shut, which destroyed any opportunity of playing it off. There were laughs behind me, but they faded quickly as I zoned out and just stared forward in horror. Shivers. Got in a stranger's car. This was before Uber. My musician friend was picking me up and said he was almost outside. I went outside a few minutes later and saw his van. I figured he went to the store one house down the street and I got in. I saw a woman in the back and I thought he brought his girlfriend along. After a minute of silence, I see my friend driving by. Yeah, I should talk more. Assume less. Oh man, I have 3. First one occurred when I was 16 or 17, still living at home with my parents. My dad called a plumber because the pipes were clogged. My dad confronted me after the plumber had left blondish mist. I am so embarrassed. The plumber found a bunch of condoms blocking the pipes. I know it was you and your boyfriend. I was so embarrassed. Second time occurred when I was in my early 20s. Was driving to an appointment somewhere and was near a high-end mall around the parking area. I see this gorgeous guy and rubberneck him. Slam into the car in front of me. Guy notices and starts cracking up. Third one, I was in my last year of college. On this particular day I had to walk all the way across campus. About 5 minutes into my commute, a girl comes up to me and says, "Hey, your dress is tucked into your underwear. That guy behind you was taking pictures." That's great. Walked all the way around campus with my ducking showing. Never going to forget that one. I used to abuse my brother. As children, I thought it was my brotherly duty to pick on my younger brother. I would push him over, punch his arms until they went numb, hold him down and do that spit thing where you let it dangle over his face until it drops, insult him at school. So many things. I was a bully to him. But I was the greatest thing ever to my peers. I was the nice, handsome jock. He was a skateboarding troublemaker. Years after high school, I would stay up late thinking of the horrible things I had done to my own brother. I was awful to him. I thought it was normal to do at the time. If I could go back in time, I'd go back and change who I was towards him. We are good now and I've apologized so many times. He's never accepted it. But we're close now. Honestly, it still keeps me up at night. Me and the girl I was dating in high school were fooling around in her basement. Suddenly her little sisters appear and we pretend we are wrestling for the remote. Well, her one sister asks to watch a movie and starts skimming the Netflix. Well, my big dig is out. Covered in spit. Cold. Her hand is around it under the blanket. And she's doing her damnness not to move so it doesn't draw attention. Her sister puts on the movie, then decided she wants an oven pizza. Runs upstairs. Girlfriend looks at me, laughs and says she'll be up there until it's done because they are not allowed to leave the oven unattended. Says my name so I look right at her. Her shirt is rolled up. She rams her tongue in my mouth and hand down my pants. I bite her ear. Her neck. We are getting hot and heavy. She jumps to her knees. I got my ears tuned to the sound of the kitchen door opening. I come. She swallows it. Stands up giggling and giddy. She then pushes me on the couch and starts to grind on me until she's bright red, making this little high-pitched gasping noise, and finally reaches her climax and we are both just laying there breathing and kissing. I tell her there's a little cum on her shirt, so she jumps up to run to the bathroom and suddenly I hear her gasp. I turn to see what's wrong and see the second sister, about 2 years old, watched the entire thing and is just standing over in the play area staring at us gape-eyed. That's how she spent the rest of the day. Just staring at us. TLDR, traumatized an ex's little sister by having sex with said ex about 10 feet away.